What's going on, guys? What would Vinny do? Back in effect. I got my man JK, John Kelly, the Wolf of Mortgages, is in the house. What's going on, brother?
How are you, brother? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for coming back. I've had John on before, and actually John helped me get this house, so it's pretty cool to have him here. Where we got the setup, and he played a big part in me getting the house, and it was kind of an interesting deal. I guess we could start talking about that, right? That was pretty cool, right?
First of all, beautiful house. Congratulations. I was here after we closed. So this is the second time I'm seeing it after all the work was done. Very happy for you. Place looks spectacular. Good stuff.
Thank you. And so when I was going through the mortgage process, we hit some funny stuff like right at the end where I was away with my daughter. It was her sixth. I took her to Disney World, and I think you were out to dinner. You probably know the story better than me, but so if you want to.
Yeah. So somebody decides to book a trip to Disney, and we had to close before I think it was September 15th because your taxes were due. Friday was the 14th, I believe. So if we didn't close that day, you would have had to file your taxes. The deal would have died. We get it done. I'm sitting at dinner. I think your credit score changed because we got your credit up a little bit. So therefore, the monthly mortgage insurance decreased. Therefore, we had to adjust the CD. We didn't have to wait the 3 days. But if you did not sign that CD Thursday night, we would not have been able to close Friday, which means the deal would have been dead because you would have had to file your taxes.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So I remember John. I was in Disney World, and I remember John calling me, and I appreciate the work you put in, brother.
That was a good deal.
Yes.
And happy to see the results.
Thank you. So last time I had you on, we went over your life and where you grew up. We're gonna do a little different tonight. Okay. We're gonna do how did you get into the business? Tonight's show is gonna be more for people maybe looking to get a mortgage, other lenders, just to the right way to do things. Yep. You know what I mean? So I'll hit you with some questions that we're going to simplify it for people that are looking to buy a house. Okay?
Sure.
So how'd you get into the business in the first place?
So I was right out of college, a retail stockbroker in the 90s, and I did that till like September 11th, 2001, and I became a day trader. A lot of the guys I worked with on Wall Street, they got into the mortgage business. I really didn't want to be a salesman anymore. My plan was let me learn how to trade, and ironically now you can live a remote lifestyle. My goal was to live 6 months in New York, 6 months in a different part of the world, trade, not have any employees, not have any office, and live a remote lifestyle. Unfortunately, I couldn't make a consistent living day trading. So I contacted some guys I worked with on Wall Street who were already up and running, very successful in the mortgage business. And I got involved probably like 2005, 2006. I'm bad with dates.
Okay.
And the rest is history.
So was it what you expected when you got in?
Yes. I mean, when I got in, actually, no. So I was always a sales guy. So we were basically calling refi leads over the phone. So that was something I was very familiar with as a retail stockbroker. However, I was shocked at how easy it was to get a loan. So I was like, hold on, I can lend this guy $500,000. I mean, there were
this is before the burst. Correct. And everything like that. Okay.
And so stated income deal. I mean, I was shocked at how easy it was to get a loan when I first got into the business, truthfully, and which obviously, which was coming shortly thereafter was the mortgage meltdown because essentially, if you had a social security card and a driver's license in 2006, you could pretty much get whatever you wanted. So that I found shocking.
Right. So what are some of the things, and we could talk about the mortgage meltdown, that could be a whole show.
Sure.
We're not even going to go into that. Mm-hmm. But what are some of the things you enjoy about your job, and then maybe the things that are not so good?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I remember when I got in the mortgage business, my buddy who I was a stockbroker with, I remember him telling me, like it was yesterday, because I hated the stock business, but I was just good at it. And for a kid like me, from my background, to be able to find a place where I can make that type of money, like how do you walk away from that? But I genuinely disliked the business. And I remember my buddy, when I went to go work for him, saying, it's like the stock business, but at the end of the day, you're truly helping somebody. And it's like, you'll feel rewarded. And so like with me sitting here right now, I'm looking at this house, not to pitch you on blast, but you just made a couple $100,000 like that. You're living in a beautiful place. There's a beautiful pool outside, guys. So if you want to, if you want to jump over the fence at 2 o'clock in the morning,
or if you want to join the beach.
Yeah. So like this is, I don't want to say life changing. That'd be a bit dramatic, but
No, yeah, listen, I feel the same way as a realtor. You're helping people with the most important transaction of their life, right?
Yeah.
And that's fulfilling, right?
Absolutely.
And we get to make good money doing it.
Yeah.
So who's better than us, right?
I agree, 1,000%.
Yes.
And the truth is, a lot of these people, after we close, you become friendly with them.
So,
my whole business is a referral-based business where I have not picked up a phone in years to solicit any business. By the grace of God, I'm very grateful for that. but that's because I've helped a lot of people along the way, developed good relationships, and ultimately, people like yourself, they'll never forget me. And now it's come along, somebody's looking to get a house. Those people have blessed me with additional business.
That means you're doing something right.
Correct.
My business is built the same
Yeah,
way.
absolutely.
So I want to, for the people listening, I want to, a lot of people get confused sometimes between a mortgage broker, what you are is a mortgage banker,
That is
correct?
correct.
Okay. Yes. Can you tell us the difference?
So I essentially, when I started in the business, I started off as a mortgage broker. I would say back in 2005, 2006, it was a lot easier back then to get deals done. So, I would not have, I really didn't even know any mortgage bankers back then. Everybody was a broker. And then after the mortgage meltdown, if you will, there was no mortgage broker business for the most part. You were done. It was hard for, even as a banker, to get deals done. And so as a mortgage banker, it's my company that's lending the money. It's my company's underwriter, my company's processing. It's our, you're dealing directly with the guy.
In-house.
Exactly.
Everything's in-house. So it's better for you, and it's also better for the person using you, correct?
I mean, like anything else, if you were going to get a Mercedes or any other, or TV, would you rather go to a third party, or would you rather go directly to the wholesaler? And essentially, it's like me being a wholesaler. Okay. Why go to a middleman?
Full service.
Correct.
Full service.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So why is it better to use someone like yourself versus a traditional bank? Sometimes I get clients where they're like, I have my money in so-and-so, so I'm going to use them. And I'm like, I don't know if that's such a good idea. I'm like, you should probably use somebody that focuses on mortgage. Besides that fact that you're doing it 24/7, of course that, but what are some of the positives to using you versus a traditional bank?
Great question. Yeah. So it's funny, I did a post today on Facebook earlier today. So currently in the last month or so, I've closed 4 deals for 4 different, they're personal bankers. 2 of them are sisters. One works for Citi, the other works for HSBC. The other was to TD Bank, and I forget who the other, might have been Bank of America, I don't recall. But those are 4 customers that are all private bankers for major banks, and they refuse to attempt to do their mortgage at their own bank because they know it will be a disaster.
A disaster meaning, as far as I know, they're gonna, when they do the appraisal, it's just a stricter to get the deal through. Is that what you mean by disaster? What's going to be a disaster?
Well, for instance, you walk into the bank, the person that's quote unquote the mortgage banker, they're not licensed. They didn't have to take any tests, no qualifications. They could have been a bank teller yesterday. Now, as of today, they give them the title mortgage banker.
Okay.
They're going to collect your paperwork. 9 out of 10 times, they're not really the guy doing your loan. There'll be one person assigned to 2 or 3 branches. They then are going to send the documents to that gentleman or lady, whomever it may be. They in turn are going to send it to that processor that could be in Texas, Kentucky, Alabama.
So we're talking time.
Correct. Forget about time. They won't physically ever have met the person who's processing the loan. The underwriter's then going to also be in a different state. So think about how cumbersome that is, where you're sending a loan to a guy who you think is really doing the loan. He's not. He's sending it to the actual loan officer, who then has a processor whom he's never met, and it's a round robin, might have done 3 or 4 deals with him. At that point in time, the processor is then sending it to an underwriter. The processor doesn't know the underwriter doesn't know the loan officer.
So they don't have the right systems in place.
Correct. And so for me, I'll give you a perfect example. I refinanced my loan several years back. I have a good friend of mine who's a VP at Chase. He runs like 2 or 3 branches in the city, been in the business 20 years, very, very smart guy, knows his business very well. The only reason why I decided to refi with him is because it was Chase. I wouldn't have to do the SEMA. You follow me? Or it would just be a simpler process. But also, I don't have I'd rather not have worked on my own refinance. So therefore, it frees up more time for me to take care of my own money. So I was going to get the same deal with him that I would have gotten on my own. So I figured let my buddy handle it, and it just be one less headache for me to deal with. So now this is a refinance. It's like a 60 LTV, 800 FICO score, plain vanilla deal. It couldn't be a DTI 22. One of those types of deals. I had a call. So on the email chain with his processor, I had to tell him after we're into this for about 2.5 months, make up a story and say, hey, my wife got me tickets to go to Europe for Father's Day. If you guys can't close by such and such date, I'm going to have to terminate the deal. And I didn't even tell him that I wasn't being truthful. And I had to do that to spur them, to get them to close a refinance transaction that took almost 3.5 months on the perfect plain vanilla deal that they already have. They have my mortgage. That's my experience.
Okay.
And I can't tell you how many of those deals I get from people that, loan officers I know that work for those banks saying, I know I'll never get this deal done, John, so I'm going to refer the customer to you.
So for me, why I refer people to you is, besides all the stuff that you're saying, we'll talk on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And there's a problem, you're going to be accessible to me.
Of course.
Where you said a traditional bank, that
Yeah.
guy won't even maybe not take my call. Like you said, I don't even know who I'm dealing with at some points, right?
Right. Funny you say that. So there, and I'm not going to say which bank because the guy's local, but there's an attorney that I use, and he's done deals for that particular guy who's at a major bank, and he said it was shocking because he called the guy, and he was away on vacation, and his number basically said call an 800 number. So now you can randomly call. So for me, that would be like, hey, leaving a voicemail, you try to reach Vinny, he's not here, but call a random number at KW and get a random agent who's going to take my business from me. So think about the mindset of a guy who's in this business, goes on vacation and tells you to call a corporate number, and you're just going to be rerouted to a different loan officer. Like, he has no desire to even get that business.
Right.
He's punching a clock.
Right. You know what it is? I think a lot of people, they have money in the bank and they think they're comfortable with the bank, but they don't realize
They have no idea.
that's a mistake.
Yep. They have no
And I
idea.
try to tell them, but
Yeah, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and sometimes the more you push them, they're like, well, what's in it for you?
yes.
And so you can't even,
And there's nothing in it for us except we know we're going to get the deal done.
Correct.
Right?
You know
The people
you're
I
gonna
refer, I refer because I know they're going to get ultimately the house for the person. And that's
or if
what-
they're not, we all know up front, hey, in 24 hours, you're not going to qualify for X, Y, and Z, or we have a few issues. We should be able to get through them, but it's full disclosure. Going into, like, Izzy sent me a deal recently. It's a friend of his wife's. He sent her to me a year ago. Credit scores in the mid 500s. Now the score is 640 plus. There was a few issues. I let him know up front what the issues were. She knew what the issues were up front. We got the commitment. So the point is, you need to let both the buyer and both realtors know, hey, this is a 90% deal. But you have to disclose that so everybody knows what I don't want somebody going into contract and having them believe 110% you're getting this house. Some cases they are.
Right.
In some cases, hey, we got a little hair on this deal. I'm letting you know this could be an issue and that could be an issue. So with me, whether it's good news or bad news,
Transparency.
exactly, you know exactly where you stand. There's
Of
no
course.
surprises.
And I love that. I like, if you call me and tell me this is not a deal, I appreciate that. I'm not upset. Yeah, like, you save me time and energy. So, and shout out to Izzy, by the way, my man Izzy, Owner's Box in Dallas. What's up, brother? So somebody comes to you and they're looking to buy a house. What are some of the tips? Like a first time home buyer, they don't know much. They refer to you, and
Sure.
you know what I mean. Are you gonna tell them work on your credit? How are you gonna guide?
Well, I would say I've been doing this long enough that literally within 60 seconds, I kind of know whether I have it, which, obviously I'm going to run all the numbers, but within 60 seconds, I kind of have an idea of where this person is at. So I can ask a few basic questions. And after that 60 seconds, I'm going to say, sir, have a nice day. I can't help you. Or I'm going to say, okay, get me the following information. So I have never sent out a pre-approval without tax returns, pay stubs, the full doc, everything. I've had realtors once or twice say, hey, can you do me a favor, send me this pre-approval, you want to get into the house? I'd say I've done it maybe once or twice, but I'll write in the email, I have not reviewed any of their documentation. You're on a Sunday and there's a client you ran into and you have to get into a house, I'll do it as a courtesy, but I'm not sending out a pre-approval without doing all my homework because it's not fair to the realtor who sent me the deal. And at the end of the day, you're a listing agent. Like, to go into a deal and you have a pre-approval and the bank didn't do their due diligence, it's not right.
And that was my next question, actually, pre-approvals, because that's a big thing. And if you have a pre-approval, like you said, like, sometimes there's people that have pre-approvals that they don't mean anything, correct? So that happens when I guess the lender's not doing their due diligence, right?
I've had, several, at least 3 or 4 deals that were pre-approved, sent to me by another realtor. Hey, I want a second set of eyes on it. I run the credit, and the bank they're pre-approved with never even ran the credit. Think about that. So you have a guy who's a mortgage broker, mortgage banker, whatever it may be. He's just churning out pre-approvals, and then his strategy is, well, once they find the house, at that point in time, I'll do my due diligence. Where for me, I do all my due diligence up front. Now, keep in mind, that's a more time-taking process. I have 3 assistants. That costs a significant amount of money. It's not cheap to have 3 assistants. But now every single person that I have a pre-approval on is a legitimate deal.
But why would you want to work with a person that is possibly not going to get the
No,
loan,
I get
right? So even if you're spending more money, it's worth it, right?
In my opinion, it is. But what happens is, it's sometimes, it might take 45 minutes to actually do the math. There's 3 different borrowers. It's self-employed businesses. It's complicated math. People don't want to do the work up front. Let me get them the pre-approval because who knows if it's a waste of time. If and when they find the house, Some people, that's when they do due diligence.
Okay.
For me, I don't want to have a pipeline of 90 people when I really only have 27 deals in there. I'd rather have the 27 deals and know I have 27 solid situations.
Makes sense. It makes sense. It's the same thing for realtors with a buyer, right? You want to make sure they're solid, or you don't want to spend your time driving around looking at houses.
COVID, you're risking your health to show a guy houses. It's 92 degrees. It's weekend. You have kids, and 3 months later, you find out the bank never ran the credit. Like, what are we doing here?
Exactly. And worse than that, you get them in contract, and then you have
your reputation is bad.
Yes.
The listing agent who's your buddy took your deal over somebody else's deal. Complete waste of everybody's time.
Exactly. So, are there issues as far as, like, we've done a lot of deals together, and we ran into some stuff where, like, the 2-family house ended up being a 1-family at the end, and that's a problem. Or the guy took out a loan, and now that's at the end, and it changed his DTI. Right? So, are there any things that you see all the time?
Yeah, I would say anything and everything. It's shocking.
You never know. Right?
You never know. And I always say, literally, I got a text from an agent we both know who's buying a house. I'm doing his mortgage. Love the guy. He's a great friend of ours, but the deal's not done till the deal's done. He's closing tomorrow, but no high fives, because my attitude is until they hand you the keys at that closing table, and nothing is done.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many people, like, I see realtors, they got an accepted offer, they're high-fiving, they're counting their money. I'm like, what a rookie error.
I pop in bottles.
Yeah, it's like,
that's when the deal starts, the accepted offer. Right?
The deal, I always say, because they'll be, hey, 3 accepted offers today. I'll see somebody post on social media and say to myself, now the deal is started.
Exactly.
In their mind, it's like, I did my job, I got the accepted offer. You haven't even started anything.
So, speaking of, I know you mentioned a few things that people might not know, like DTI, and so what is DTI? And that's an important thing,
Sure.
right?
So the few things you really need to be concerned about is DTI, which is debt to income ratio, which is essentially your income, a ratio of your income and your monthly obligations. DTI typically you want it to be less than 50% on a conventional deal.
But DTI, debt to income ratio, correct?
Correct. And so that's basically the bank saying you make X amount of dollars per month between your car payments, your credit card debt, your student loans, and your new mortgage. It has to be below this ratio. So people say, well, I got 800 credit. It means nothing. You have 800 credit, or I made $1 million last year. Yeah, but you're self-employed and you paid yourself pennies on the dollar. I always laugh when people say, well, I have 800 credit. Oh, as if that's really going to get you the loan. Now, it's good to have 800 credit, but the truth is it's all about the income versus the debt, that ratio.
Okay. You know what else people say? I own 3 houses already.
Oh, that's
they think that's gonna help you get another house.
Yeah.
Then it might hurt, right?
It always hurts, of course. Now that
changes your DTI, right? That's what we're talking about.
There you go.
So, as far as besides DTI, credit, I know when I did the house here, you helped me fix my credit, which is an important factor. What would you say is the main, as a buyer, is it everything combined? But what's the most important thing?
I would say the most important thing is honestly the team you're working with. Forget about DTI, forget about credit. Who's your attorney? Who's your realtor? Who's your bank?
And that they all communicate
Correct.
together, right?
Correct.
Right.
I mean, I can't tell you how many deals I've seen die because the person insists on using like a union attorney to save $100.
It's insanity. It's insanity. Yo, I'm like, dude, come on! Like, this is the biggest deal of your life. You're trying to get a discount with the lawyer. Like, I do.
It's shocking. Or I have a pre-approval with TD Bank, and that rate is 1/8 of a point lower than yours.
You're buying a $900,000 house. You're worried about $1,200,
Yeah.
or versus 17.
It's shocking. But those people, 9 out of 10 times, if the problem I told them they're going to run into, they ran into. But why listen to me? I've only been doing this for almost 20 years.
But sometimes they actually get mad at you when you tell them the truth.
Yeah, well, nobody, listen,
Yeah.
I always say people want to be lied to. So let me get this straight. You spoke to 4 guys. Everybody's telling you 3%, 3.1. Some guy told you 2.5. And you're going to go, it's like you're trying to buy an S-Class Mercedes. It's 3 people tell you 100,000, 99,000, 97,000. One guy tells you 60 grand.
It's the same thing when I go for a listing, right?
Yeah.
All the realtors tell them it's worth $1 million. I'm telling them the truth, it's worth $750. Who are they going to believe? You know what I mean?
People want an honest guy until the honest guy tells them the truth that they don't want to hear, unfortunately.
Yes. So, what are some questions you think a buyer should ask a lender when they're interviewing a lender, like to know they're working with the right person?
Yeah, I would say, what's your turn time? Tell me about is your underwriter located locally?
But no, what they mostly probably ask is the rate, right?
Which, they always ask.
That's the big thing, right? Is that important? How important?
Yeah, I think it's very important. But what they have to realize, I always laugh, and realtors will call me like, realtors, what's the rate today? On what? Single family, multifamily, FHA, conventional, 5-year ARM, 7-year ARM. like to ask that question, it's like walking into a Mercedes-Benz dealership and say, hey, how much is a Mercedes? And realtors asking that question. It's one thing for a civilian to asking that question, but you're a realtor. How could, is it conforming, is it non-conforming, is it jumbo? So the rate is very important, but if you just ask a guy, hey, what's the rate? And that guy responds with a number, walk away from that guy. Because he's giving you...
Can they give you the rate at that? They don't know. Can someone give you, can a lender tell you a rate if I walk in to sit down in the bank and the guy tells me 275? Can he tell me that without he can't tell me that till I give him all my information.
Well, he can say whatever he likes, so he's under no legal obligation. How could you tell somebody what the rate is? It's like going to the doctor and say, hey, I got back pain. And he said, what's your sciatic nerve is acting up? Without any x-rays or out a thorough examination.
So there is no rate until he gets all your information.
Of course
right?
not. You don't have a deal rate. You're negotiating a rate, buddy. Let's make sure you can get a house.
So what is, like, I have friends that are looking to get houses, and sometimes they're not showing a lot of money on the books or their credit. Is there a number where, a bottom line number, where you got to be making this much and your credit needs to be this much to even think about buying a house?
I always say rule of thumb, and it's pretty accurate. And I mean, it's a pretty good, off the top of your head, a mathematical equation. I always tell people the max loan you'll qualify for will be approximately 5 times your annual income on a single family. So if you're making $100,000 a year, typically it's going to be about a $500,000 loan. If it's a 2-family, add an extra $150,000 to that. If it's a 3-family, add an additional $150,000.
But I mean, let's say someone's making $30,000, they can't buy a house.
No way, no.
What's the bottom line to get?
Well, it depends. Are you in New York? Are you in Pennsylvania? So it's going to. I would say you're in New York. There is no single-family house under $500K. If you're not making at least $100,000 or close to it, there's no shot.
Okay. And credit, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, truthfully, I do the credit repair, so. Of course, we need to have a decent credit score.
What's a decent credit? I remember back in the days it was 640. Is it
I
higher
would say,
than that now?
I mean, ideally, the higher the credit, the better. I can do loans well into the 500 score, but I don't want to do them because they're so sloppy. Like, why do it anyway? So, unfortunately, I'm in a position where I have enough business. I always laugh when you see a mortgage guy bragging that he can do credit scores in the 500s. Yeah, we all can do it. We're all pretty much the same guys. But why would I take on this disaster? And the guy who's preaching that is the guy who has no business. So let me tell you about this program that's a one in a million shot, just to try to get 20 people to call me and hope that I can turn something into a deal. If you're dealing with a successful guy, he's not going to do that because he's got 30, 40, 50 deals in the pipeline that he's got to take care of. It's like, why would you want to have 100 people call you, of which maybe 2 are actually going to qualify? It doesn't make sense. So I always laugh when people say, wow, so-and-so posted this, look what they can do. And I'm like, no, so-and-so's doing no business. That's just, when a guy does no business, that's the stuff that they post. We've had this conversation
Right,
before.
of course. And right now, obviously, the market is insane, right? So do you think, I mean, we're busy, like, thank God we're busy right now.
Yeah.
There's low inventory, right? So are you finding a lot of buyers that you're working with are for me, a lot of frustrated because they're bidding on houses they're not getting? Or do you deal with the same thing on the lender, and they're not really as much?
I would say it's funny because I think right now is a great time to be in the business, period. But I will say, like, I've had deals recently where the sellers try to back out of the deal after we're in contract. I closed the deal last week with Izzy, ironically again, and the guy was in contract, and it appraised for like $40,000 more than the purchase price, which that information is confidential. Only the buyer knows that. But the seller attempted to back out of the deal. They had to go after him via a lawsuit, and that's the only way he agreed to sell the house. So
why? Because he found out it was worth.
No, well, he wouldn't find out to us because that's confidential information. But I guess he just figured, hey, I got $700,000, and who knows? 2 days later, you're gonna knock on the door. I'll give you $730 cash, and now he wants to flip the deal. So I've seen a lot of crazy stuff. But ultimately, for me, fortunately, I think it's really tough being a realtor right now because from what I understand, you put an offer on the house, there's 20 other offers.
Right.
And so, I mean, I
like this time though because the good realtors, this is when you have to, right? You know what I mean?
Of course.
You have to step up. There's the service, and you got to be able to list to survive right now, right? And it
kind
of weeds out.
And when the market gets bad, which it's going to eventually slow down, all those guys that are weak, they're going to be out of the business, like I've been saying for years.
And I'm not wishing anybody out.
No, of course not. But it's got to be. There's going to be a cleansing.
Yes. And it makes you have to step up your game. That's
correct.
All.
If you're not the guy you pretend to be, you're not going to be.
And there's a lot of people pretend on social media.
Yeah, listen. You and I are the same age when we didn't come from that generation of hey, I like we say all the time. some people rather pretend to be successful than actually be successful.
Right.
Crazy world we live in.
It is.
You know?
So I didn't ask you, I'm big with the old, I've been bragging about my old fashions a lot on my show. So I know I made one for you before the show.
Fantastic, I must say.
All right.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
You're not saying that because I
No, it's fantastic too. Thank you.
Okay.
Cherries are fantastic as well.
Thank you. So I think that's good for today. I mean, I think anybody watching definitely learn from today, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're definitely, John is family to what we're going to do. Yes, of course. And he's going to be on and again. So anybody out there, any questions that they want answered, just
reach out.
Yeah, reach out, and then we'll have you on again. You're going to come on constantly.
Of course. Have me anytime you.
Markets change. And that's another thing people don't understand. This is in cycles. Like it's not always right.
Of course.
Yes.
I mean, the last time we met, it was a completely different ballgame, and that's not that long. When we did this deal, this house today is a 7-figure house. It's an all-out bidding war. I mean, this house today is investors, not even civilians trying to buy the house. It's some guy who is a big landlord, doesn't want to buy buildings anymore, and is like, I'm going to buy this.
Right. Because at the time, last time we did it, multifamilies, and then all of a sudden now single, like you know what I mean. Things change, like we said. People started going up north.
Yeah.
You know.
This is a property right now. Multifamily right now in the Bronx is a very hot item. I mean, they don't exist. I mean, they're just
yes, and because of the lack of inventory, when they come, there's so many people that want them. It's just,
a lot the size doesn't exist.
Yes. I was lucky to my mom was close by and it worked out for me. I
mean,
wasn't doing it for that's the funny
out
part. You know what I mean?
Sometimes it works out for the best that way, but this is essentially tear down the garage. You're an investor. Take this, turn it into a 3-family, build another 3-family back there. Now you have 6 units.
Right.
Where are you going to buy land in the Bronx and then you would like this to build a property?
It's definitely a nice one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. Appreciate it. And I appreciate you helping get
it. Well.
And so I got a question for you before we wrap it up. So you see behind you is an album wall.
Yes.
It took some time to put it up.
Mm-hmm.
I know you mentioned you had paid in full in your car.
Of course.
Of course. So these albums kind of impacted me growing up. So for you, if you were going to do an album wall, what album would be up there?
I would say the first Notorious B.I.G. album, probably a second as well. What is it, Blueprint? The Jay-Z album?
Yeah.
That's my generation, like early 90s, mid-90s.
So
our generation.
That's the song you had, you played it till...
yeah. I mean, that album, I remember Things Don't Change. The great album. Yeah, both albums. And then
I was going to put Biggie up there. There was a lot of stuff.
Actually,
yes, you know what I mean? I had to choose, and I just... For me, growing up in the 80s, like Run DMC, LL, and then KRS, but Biggie was big.
Yeah, see, for me, I was never like the Nirvana. I was never really, I was never a rock and roll guy, personally. Beastie Boys, I was never really a fan. So I'm just to each his own.
Biggie, yes.
Yeah, Biggie. I mean, the fact now, listen, we gotta make an official complaint.
Listen, I got a lot of people calling me Biggie, Led Zeppelin. I got
and listen, I get Led Zeppelin, but I would say Rolling Stones, etc. But I think you got another room for another 4. I think I might have to throw Biggie up there.
I agree. I would think so. A lot of people said 2. Tribe Called Quest, Low End Theory was a big one.
I was never really a big fan of them.
Tribe Guy.
Yeah.
Nas, Illmatic.
Oh, there you go. I was listening to that yesterday.
Slick Rick, Children's.
Slick Rick, yeah.
There was a lot that were on the bubble.
Yeah, no doubt.
But my man, if you're looking to buy a house, and I use it for, so that's another thing. I refer people that I use personally. Across my man John Kelly, across Country Mortgage. He's got an office in Mars Park Avenue. He's gonna guide you to the end, and that's what it's about. And I use him. I recommend him because I know he'll get you to the finish line, and that's the reason. I recommend lawyers because I know they're good at what they do. So anybody I recommend, that's the reason. Keep doing what you're doing out there, my man John. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Anytime, and we'll have you back soon.
I look forward to it.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for your time. Have a good night, everybody.
Peace.